at-home ionic versus covalent lab. You're going to answer a few questions, and here's the note sheets to refer to if you need some review for those questions. And then a few new terms. Hydrogen bond. So go ahead and fill that in on your note sheet, on this lab sheet. A hydrogen bond is a weak attraction between a partially positive hydrogen atom and one molecule and a partially negative oxygen, nitrogen, or fluorine atom of another. So we're going to look at two examples, water and DNA. So here's water, and so if we zoom in on a single water molecule, water, as you have identified above, is a polar covalent molecule. So it is covalent. The electron pair between oxygen, let's draw it in another color, between hydrogen and oxygen, they share an electron pair, but it's shared unequally. The electrons spend more time around the oxygen nucleus because the oxygen is more electronegative. That gives the oxygen atom a partial negative charge with this fun little Greek symbol, lowercase delta. And it gives the hydrogen atoms partially positive charges because the electrons are not hanging out by them very often. The effect that has is that when water molecules are next to each other, the oxygen of one water molecule is partially attracted to the hydrogen of another water molecule, and that's represented by this dotted line here. So the bonds are much stronger within the water molecule, the intramolecular bonds, than they are between the molecules, but they are strong enough, these hydrogen bonds, which we can label here, they are strong enough so that water is liquid at room temperature. That's what makes water liquid. It keeps the water molecules together, and they kind of move and slide around each other, and as you pour water, the hydrogen bonds will break, some will break and new ones will form, so they're constantly forming and breaking, but it keeps it as a liquid. Now, of course, if we heat water up enough, those water molecules will start to vibrate fast enough that they break the hydrogen bonds, that they cannot stay bound, and water will turn into water vapor. DNA also has cool hydrogen bonds. You've probably seen this picture, the double helix, right? So it's like a twisted ladder, and the rungs of the ladder are nucleotides, and there's 4 nucleotides: cytosine, guanine, C and G, adenine, and thymine. And here we have them enlarged to show the molecular structure of each of those nucleotides. What's holding the rungs of the ladder together, so the little black lines holding each side of the ladder together, are hydrogen bonds. Here they are, look at there. There's a hydrogen bond between the oxygen of one molecule, the thymine, and the hydrogen of the adenine molecule. Or the hydrogen of thymine and the nitrogen of adenine. You see some more here between cytosine and guanine. So, cool example of hydrogen bonds at work. Another term we're going to write here is what a polymer is. A long repeating chain of monomers, of molecules. So we have some examples. Starch. Starch is a repeating chain of glucose molecules. So here's a picture. Each glucose molecule represented as a hexagon because it's a hexagonally shaped molecule. And it's big long chains of those. So that's the monomer in this case is glucose. And then the polymer is the starch. DNA itself is a polymer. The polymer is DNA, and the monomers are the nucleotides. And as we just went over above, there's 4 different types of monomers: adenine, thymine, guanine, and cytosine. So DNA is also a polymer. And so we can notice additional monomers here. So here's one monomer is cytosine. We could circle another monomer, guanine. Right? Or adenine. Okay. let's see, other terms. Hydrophilic and hydrophobic. So see if you can guess, and then you can look up online. One of these terms means attracted to water, and one means repelled by water. So figure that out and look it up online. An example is the cell membrane. And the cell membrane is made up of phospholipids. So each one of these molecules that has a head and two tails is a phospholipid. And the inside, this represents the cell membrane. It's a double layer of these phospholipids with the tails pointed towards each other and then the heads pointed outwards. And so some of the heads point to outside of the cell, and then some heads point inside the cell. And it turns out inside and outside of the cell are both water-based environments. So like the cytoplasm is mostly water. This water outside of a cell, or the fluid outside of a cell is mostly water. So you have to figure out, well, how do you think they're going to arrange their cells? So the head, is this going to be you're going to write either hydrophilic or hydrophobic here, or you can write it, type it here. Label the heads and tails as hydrophobic or hydrophilic. Which ones are hiding from the water, meaning they're phobic, they're scared of it, hydrophobic, and what parts are attracted to the water, hydrophilic. Okay, so we figure that out. All right, so now we're getting to the lab part. A common polymer, so we just learned what a polymer is, used to make what are called hydrogels is something called sodium polyacrylate. And this is actually what's in diapers that makes diapers absorbent. They absorb liquid. So here are the monomers that make up sodium polyacrylate, which itself is a polymer. So a sodium polyacrylate, here's a sort of simplified picture of it, is a long chain of these carboxylic acid groups. So each one of these is a monomer, right? And then here's a simplified drawing where the sort of the backbone is just drawn as a line, so that's like these parts here, and then only the little oxygens, the little negative oxygens are drawn coming off of the chain like that. So the negative charges repel each other, right? So it stays kind of long and not bunched up. Okay, here's a question. Do you think the negatively charged oxygens of sodium polyacrylate polymer will be attracted to water molecules or repelled? So my hint to you is think about the charges. We have a negative oxygen here, lots of negative oxygens. Is that going to be attracted to a water molecule or repelled? And then you're going to explain why. And then when you decide whether it's attracted to or repelled, you have to write whether it's hydrophobic or hydrophilic. And then in class what we did, we took the sodium acrylate powder, dry powder, and we added water, and it became a gel. It absorbed all the water. You're going to watch a video, and you're going to describe what happens when you add water to sodium polyacrylate. And so here's a picture of what's actually happening. Water molecules are attracted to the negative charges by hydrogen bonding. So up above, if you determined that the negative oxygens are attracted to water molecules, you were right. So what happens here is these water molecules come and they make these little hydrogen bonds to those. The hydrogen of a water molecule makes a hydrogen bond to the oxygen of the sodium polyacrylate. So it binds all these water molecules, soaking them up. So cool. Now we're going to see what happens when we add different things to sodium polyacrylate. So we're going to think about what happens if we add sodium chloride, which is sodium and chloride ions. They'll break up into their individual positive and negative ions. And the question is, which of these ions will be attracted to the negative oxygens? Will it be the sodium or the chlorine? So you answer that. Then you're going to add, in class we added salt to the sodium polyacrylate. You'll watch a video of it and you'll see what happened. And then here's a picture of what happens. Here's the water, sodium polyacrylate with the water, so it's hydrated, right? It's all fluffy and gel-like. And then the salt coming in. And what's going on here with the salt? What happened there? There's a water there. And it got knocked out by a salt ion. One of the waters survived, but another one got knocked out by the salt ion. So you're going to explain what's going on. Why did the sodium polyacrylate release all its water when salt was added? And then the next thing we did in the lab is we tried a bunch of other things. We tried adding baking soda. We tried adding sugar and flour and artificial sweetener and cornstarch and borax and all these things. And then before we added them, students had to determine whether they were ionic or covalent by looking at what kind of elements are made of them. Now, so remember that hydrogen is a nonmetal. So let's look at sugar together. It has carbon, it has hydrogen, and it has oxygen. And those are all nonmetals. And so from the very beginning of this lab, we reviewed when you have nonmetals bonded to each other, a nonmetal plus a nonmetal. In this case, this is a nonmetal plus a nonmetal plus a nonmetal. That is covalent. And we know because all the atoms are nonmetals. Now, in some of these other examples, you'll have to use your periodic table, but some of these other examples have some metals mixed in with them, and so they are covalent, ionic. And then I'm going to be adding photographs here of what the sodium polyacrylate looks like when we add it to each of these substances, whether it stays all gel-like and fluffy like snow, or whether it turns back to liquid, releasing the water. Okay, and then you're going to have some questions to answer here. And that is it.